From exposing Hulk Hogan's backstage manipulation and racist behavior,
bigger in life, Americana kind of deal, and then obviously, you know, he gets caught on tape, you know, saying some derogatory racist things.
To revealing dirty backstage truths about Shawn Michaels, The Undertaker is pulling the curtain back on some of the darkest WWE legends of his era. And trust me, what he says about some of these names will completely change how you see them. Let's begin with Hulk Hogan. If there is one single name that has been absolutely synonymous with the very concept of professional wrestling for nearly 5 decades running, that name would undoubtedly and unquestionably be Hulk Hogan. Hulk Hogan was meticulously crafted and carefully positioned to be the ultimate embodiment of the American hero archetype, but lurking beneath that carefully constructed and maintained public image lies a far more complicated and troubling story that The Undertaker has been methodically and systematically peeling back layer by layer. The Undertaker has made it abundantly and unmistakably clear through his various interviews and podcast appearances that while he fully recognizes and acknowledges Hogan's absolutely undeniable contribution to wrestling's rise to mainstream popularity during the 1980s boom period, he simultaneously holds significant and lasting grievances about the Hulkster's behavior behind the curtain. One of the most damning and revealing stories that The Undertaker has shared dates all the way back to Survivor Series 1991, that pivotal night when The Undertaker captured his very first WWF championship by defeating Hogan with his devastating tombstone piledriver. What should have been an absolutely crowning achievement and triumphant moment for the young rising star instead became a source of lasting bitterness and deep-seated resentment that would color their relationship for decades to come. The Undertaker has openly and candidly stated in multiple interviews, "I lost a lot of respect for him that day. Why would The Undertaker make such a strong and definitive statement? Because Hogan claimed to have suffered an extremely severe and debilitating neck injury from the tombstone, even going so far as to dramatically suggest that he had experienced temporary paralysis. All of this despite crystal clear video evidence that showed absolutely no head contact whatsoever during the execution of the move. This wasn't merely innocent exaggeration or the typical embellishment that wrestlers are known for. This was calculated and deliberate self-preservation designed specifically to avoid but the revelations and exposures about Hogan certainly don't stop there, not by a long shot. The Undertaker has also extensively discussed Hogan's well-documented pattern of compulsive and habitual lying, outlandish and fantastical claims that stretch the boundaries of credibility well past the breaking point. There were stories about how Hogan nearly joined the legendary rock band Metallica as their bass player, tales about wrestling an impossible 400 days in a single calendar year, which is mathematically impossible even accounting for leap years and time zone manipulation, and claims about Elvis Presley being one of his biggest fans, despite the inconvenient fact that Presley had already passed away years before Hogan's rise to wrestling fame and prominence. Perhaps most recently and most tellingly, The Undertaker weighed in with his honest assessment on Hogan being booed absolutely mercilessly by the crowd at the highly publicized Netflix Raw debut show. When the interviewer asked The Undertaker directly whether he felt any sympathy or felt bad for Hogan in that moment of public humiliation, The Undertaker's brutally honest response was incredibly telling and revealed his true feelings.
Did you feel bad for him? No.
Well, hey man, I got feelings. I got feelings for people. Like, sometimes in life, things come back.
Well, I mean, it's funny that, you know, we were talking about this last night that, you know, with you know, all the podcasts and all the books and everything, and everybody realizes that Hogan wasn't the guy that he was portrayed to be, you know. And I'm not asking you to put yourself in a tight spot here or anything, but I mean, he's not
from a
the
fan's
guy.
perspective. We grew up seeing Hogan as this great thing, and
bigger
then
in life, Americana kind of deal, and then obviously, you know, he gets caught on tape, you know, saying some derogatory racist things, and you know, in this day and age where all of that is such a hot button deal. Like, I don't know what you expect.
Despite all of these damning revelations and harsh criticisms, The Undertaker still maintains with conviction that Hogan absolutely belongs on the Mount Rushmore of professional wrestling for what he accomplished and contributed to the business during its most formative years. CM Punk. The reported tension between The Undertaker and CM Punk represents one of the most discussed backstage incidents in WWE history, though both parties have since downplayed its significance. The confrontation occurred during a WWE European tour, likely around 2008-2009, when CM Punk was serving as World Heavyweight Champion. According to Dave Meltzer's original reporting, the incident centered on WWE's informal dress code policy for champions, which expected title holders to present themselves professionally while representing the company. As The Undertaker recounted, he said, "There was an initiative at the time requiring wrestlers to dress in business casual while traveling. Punk, known for his rebellious straight-edge persona, would often arrive at arenas in casual attire such as basketball shorts and flip-flops. The Undertaker, serving as the locker room leader, responsible for maintaining professional standards, pulled Punk aside to address the issue. In his own words, Undertaker simply said, 'Hey man, none of us like having to dress like this, but I think you're getting a little bit of heat with the boys. You just might want to think about dressing a little better.' The exchange escalated when Punk questioned why John Cena was seemingly exempt from similar expectations. Undertaker's reported response was blunt, 'You're not Cena.' This comment, while factually accurate given Cena's position as WWE's top star at the time, apparently did not sit well with Punk. According to some reports, when the conversation reached Vince McMahon, he interpreted Punk's comparison to Cena as the young champion, believing he was on equal footing with WWE's biggest star. The alleged consequences of this confrontation became a subject of intense speculation among wrestling fans and observers. Punk's World Heavyweight Championship reign ended at Unforgiven 2008 in a quick squash match against The Undertaker, leading many to believe he was being punished for the dress code incident. However, conflicting reports have emerged over the years. Some sources claim the title change was planned regardless of backstage politics, while others suggest The Undertaker himself requested the match not be placed in the main event position due to concerns about his physical condition at the time. The aftermath extended beyond their 2008 encounter. Punk later became one of the most vocal critics of Wrestlers' Court, an informal peer tribunal traditionally led by veterans like The Undertaker and JBL. Whether exaggerated or not, the incident reinforced Punk's reputation as a locker room disruptor who challenged WWE's unwritten rules. Combined with his public confrontations, refusal to fall in line, and ongoing clashes with authority, it cemented his image as one of the most polarizing and controversial figures of his era. Kurt Angle. When The Undertaker reflects on WWE's darkest era, he often points to moments that never made it to television. One of the clearest examples is the infamous plane ride from hell, a night that exposed how chaotic and unchecked the locker room had become behind the scenes. In 2002, following WWE's Insurrection pay-per-view in the United Kingdom, a transatlantic flight carrying top stars spiraled into absolute disorder. What began as drinking and roughhousing quickly turned into physical altercations, humiliation, and behavior that WWE would later spend years trying to distance itself from. One of the most shocking moments involved Kurt Angle. According to both Angle and The Undertaker, Vince McMahon and Angle were amateur wrestling on the plane, playfully testing strength and competitiveness. But when Undertaker woke up and saw Angle on top of Vince, he did not see horseplay. He saw a champion potentially attacking the boss. Without hesitation, Undertaker reacted on instinct and put Angle in a chokehold, rendering the Olympic gold medalist unconscious. Undertaker later admitted he acted purely out of loyalty and protection, believing he was stopping something far worse from happening.
Look, if I don't mess with you, then I don't like you. That's just...
Well, if you don't talk to someone, you don't like them.
That means I might be borderline hate if I don't talk to you.
Sheesh.
I mean, but you were something special.
Likable, right?
Huh?
Likable.
In an unlikable kind of way. No. I mean, you warmed up. You warmed up after you loosened up, and you were a little stiff when you first got there, but
I was stiff, and I will admit that.
As Undertaker has explained over the years, the incident revealed something much darker than a simple misunderstanding. It showed a locker room where boundaries barely existed, authority was enforced through intimidation, and excess was tolerated as long as business stayed profitable. At the same time, Kurt Angle was quietly unraveling. Behind the scenes, he was battling severe injuries, dependence on painkillers, and immense pressure to perform at an elite level. Those struggles would later surface through arrests, rehab stints, and his eventual departure from WWE. Undertaker has acknowledged that Angle's toughness often hid how close he was to breaking down. Although the two men eventually developed mutual respect and a genuine friendship, the story remains one of Undertaker's most revealing accounts. It was a rare glimpse into an era where legendary careers were built alongside chaos, addiction, and unchecked behavior. For The Undertaker, the plane ride from hell was not just a wild night. It was proof that even WWE's biggest legends were operating in a system that had lost control long before the public ever realized it. Shawn Michaels. When The Undertaker looks back on WWE's darkest era, Shawn Michaels is one name that comes up for reasons far beyond what fans saw on television. To the public, Michaels was the Heartbreak Kid, one of the greatest performers to ever step into a WWE ring. Behind the scenes, he represented everything volatile about that period. By the late 1990s, Michaels had built a reputation as unpredictable, politically powerful, and difficult to control. His influence backstage was so strong that many wrestlers genuinely questioned whether he could be trusted to do business when it mattered most. That fear reached its peak at WrestleMania 14. On the night Stone Cold Steve Austin was meant to become the new face of WWE, there were real concerns that Michaels might refuse to drop the championship. Undertaker later admitted that he positioned himself at gorilla position, prepared to step in if Michaels tried to sabotage the plan. For years, Undertaker denied the story. Then, he finally told the truth.
So, obviously, you changed a whole a lot, to the point where obviously we have a great relationship and a great friendship and all of that. So when you ask me about it, like, I felt really, really bad to say, yeah, I was going to stomp your ass or try at least to stomp your ass if you didn't do business. Like, I felt so bad because our relationship had changed so much, and I genuinely, as a person, cared for you. I was like, I can't say that I was going to do that. I just felt awful.
That revelation exposed more than a single moment. It confirmed how little trust existed around Michaels at the height of his power. At the time, Shawn was battling serious substance abuse issues, clashing with management, and wielding backstage influence that often put him at odds with other top stars. Incidents like the Montreal Screwjob only reinforced his image as someone willing to cross lines if it benefited him. Undertaker has since explained that the locker room atmosphere was tense and unstable. Michaels' behavior, combined with unchecked ego and addiction, created an environment where veterans felt the company needed protecting from its own champions.
But you know how the locker room is. And, you know, it's like, man, I don't know if Shawn's going to do it, or
Okay, I guess.
So that's how, you know how it festers.
Right?
Okay.
Well, that's what I was just saying. 'Cause they made, again, they said, I was just trying to remember, like, did we have? Because we didn't have.
No, I had already worked. I had already worked. I worked with Kane, and I'd worked and I'd gone back and done everything.
The Undertaker explained his years of deception with touching sincerity. By the time Michaels finally asked him directly about the WrestleMania 14 incident many years later, their relationship had transformed and evolved so dramatically and positively that he simply couldn't bring himself to admit the truth and potentially damage what they had built. Koko B. Ware. Long before The Undertaker became the undisputed master and most recognized practitioner of the devastating Tombstone piledriver, there was none other than Koko B. Ware, the beloved and energetic Birdman, who would bring his famous pet macaw named Frankie to ringside and consistently energized crowds throughout arenas across the country during the 1980s wrestling boom. The move was badly botched. According to both The Undertaker's detailed recollections and Koko's own personal accounts of the incident, Ware's head made contact with the mat significantly harder than was intended or safe, leading to a tense and potentially explosive backstage confrontation immediately following the match. The Undertaker has vividly and honestly described the tense aftermath of that botched move. The very first tombstone that I give is to Koko. I give him the tombstone. 1, 2, 3, and he's out. We get backstage and Koko gets me in the hallway. He's like, brother, you can't be dropping people on their head like that. The Undertaker took Koko's criticism and correction completely to heart, modifying and refining the move's execution significantly to ensure maximum safety for his opponents. A critical change and adjustment that would allow him to deliver thousands upon thousands more tombstones throughout his legendary 3-decade career without causing serious serious injury or incident. The story perfectly encapsulates the dangerous reality of professional wrestling. Even the most iconic and recognizable moves can go horribly wrong in an instant, and the margin for error between a great performance and a career-ending disaster is razor thin at all times. Chris Jericho. When Chris Jericho made his highly anticipated and much-hyped WWE debut in August of 1999, he arrived with all the swagger and confidence of a man who had already conquered both WCW and the Japanese wrestling scene. His famous countdown clock interrupted The Rock's promo in what would become one of the most memorable and iconic debuts in the entire history of professional wrestling. But just mere weeks later, the confident young star made a fateful decision that would land him in extremely serious hot water with none other than The Undertaker himself. In only his second WWE promo appearance, Jericho boldly interrupted The Undertaker's segment and proceeded to call him the personification of boredom, an incredibly bold and arguably reckless shot directed at one of the company's most protected and respected characters, delivered by someone who had barely arrived in the company. Backstage heat that Jericho received was immediate, intense, and widespread throughout the locker room. Jericho himself has openly admitted in subsequent interviews, "I told Undertaker how boring he was after he just delivered a 10-minute super boring promo. I got so much heat for that." The Undertaker, serving in his unofficial but widely recognized capacity as the locker room's enforcer and protector of standards, reportedly confronted Jericho directly and put him in his place, delivering a firm reminder that in WWE's strictly observed hierarchy, rookies and newcomers absolutely did not get to publicly disrespect established legends, even when it was all supposedly in character for television. What makes this particular story compelling and instructive is its eventual resolution and how the relationship evolved over time. Rather than holding an eternal grudge against the young upstart, The Undertaker and Jericho went on to have numerous successful and memorable collaborations throughout the following years, including their highly regarded Elimination Chamber match in 2010. The early confrontation became a valuable lesson learned about respect and hierarchy, one that Jericho has spoken about numerous times since, with a characteristic mix of genuine embarrassment and self-deprecating humor about his youthful arrogance. The Hardy Boys. Matt and Jeff Hardy, the legendary Team Extreme, the death-defying pioneers of the revolutionary TLC matches, the fearless daredevils who helped define the entire Attitude Era with their willingness to put their bodies on the line night after night. But even these beloved fan-favorite brothers weren't immune to the unique backstage justice system known as Wrestler's Court, the informal tribunal where The Undertaker served as the presiding judge and final arbiter of locker room disputes and transgressions. According to Matt Hardy's detailed recollection of the incident, the Hardy Boys found themselves summoned before Wrestler's Court for what might seem like a relatively minor offense to outside observers. They had inadvertently displaced Kane from his designated first-class seats on a company flight. The incident was formally brought to The Undertaker's attention by road agent and manager Michael Hayes, and court was officially convened to address the transgression. The punishment handed down by Judge Undertaker? The Hardy Boys were fined and formally required to provide bottles of Jack Daniel's whiskey for The Undertaker and to purchase lunches for Kane for a specified period. The punishment might sound almost comical to those unfamiliar with wrestling's unique backstage culture, but Wrestler's Court was taken deadly seriously by everyone involved. It served as an essential mechanism for maintaining locker room order and ensuring that established veterans received their proper due respect from younger talent. But The Undertaker's relationship with the Hardy brothers extends far beyond courtroom drama and disciplinary matters. One of the most significant and celebrated moments in their intertwined histories came during The Undertaker's legendary and career-defining ladder match with Jeff Hardy on Monday Night Raw in 2002. Undertaker has spoken with genuine pride and satisfaction about that particular match, using it as a prime example when explaining his philosophy of elevation and what it means to truly help younger talent. A lot of people don't understand that aren't in the business. Someone can lose and get elevated at the same time. I pride myself on the fact that I could do that. More recently, in a touching display of respect, The Undertaker personally reached out to congratulate Matt Hardy on achieving 30 years in professional wrestling, recording a heartfelt video message saying, "Hey Matt, it's Take. Man, I just want to reach out and say congratulations. 30 years is quite the accomplishment, man." It's a touching and meaningful acknowledgement that despite the court appearances and occasional backstage tensions over the years, respect and appreciation ultimately prevailed between these legends. Raven. Raven arrived in WWE in the year 2000, carrying with him a well-established reputation as one of the most cerebral, articulate, and outspoken performers in all of professional wrestling. His groundbreaking work in ECW had earned him cult hero status among hardcore wrestling fans, and his entire character was built upon dark, philosophical monologues that showcased his intelligence and creativity. But that impressive gift for verbal expression and constant chatter would ultimately prove to be his downfall when he found himself standing before the judge's bench at Wrestler's Court. According to detailed accounts of the incident from multiple sources, Raven faced formal charges of excessive self-promotion and generally poor locker room etiquette, behaviors and attitudes that rubbed the established WWE roster the wrong way and disrupted the carefully maintained harmony of the locker room. As the presiding judge with absolute authority over the proceedings, The Undertaker handed down a punishment that was perfectly and poetically tailored to fit the specific nature of Raven's crime: complete and total silence in the locker room for a period of 2 full months. For someone like Raven, who absolutely thrived on intellectual discourse, philosophical debates, and near constant verbal interaction with those around him, the punishment was nothing short of psychological torture. The Undertaker's Wrestler's Court rulings were legendary for their creativity and appropriateness. He firmly believed that the punishment should always fit the crime in a meaningful and instructive way, and for a compulsive and celebrated talker like Raven, enforced silence was absolutely the ultimate penalty that could be imposed. The story powerfully illustrates the unique and often bizarre power dynamics that existed within wrestling's locker rooms during that era. The Undertaker wasn't part of official WWE management, held no corporate title, and had no formal authority, but his word was absolute law among the talent. Established veterans had to be respected without exception. Newcomers had to prove themselves worthy before being fully accepted, and anyone who disrupted the established hierarchy or violated the unwritten codes faced swift and certain consequences. Raven reportedly served his sentence of silence without incident or complaint, a testament to the deadly seriousness with which Wrestler's Court was universally regarded by everyone in the business. Molina and Sharmell. Not all Wrestler's Court sessions dealt with relatively minor infractions like stolen airplane seats or excessive self-promotion in the locker room. Sometimes the court was called upon to address genuine and serious interpersonal conflicts that threatened to boil over into actual physical violence between the parties involved. Such was the explosive case with Molina and Sharmell, a bitter feud so intense and deeply personal that even the Undertaker's authoritative courtroom presence couldn't fully contain the volatile emotions on display. The heated conflict centered primarily on serious backstage drama involving the wrestler Molina, including accusations of bullying behavior toward other performers and complicated issues arising from her personal relationships with other wrestlers on the roster. Sharmell, the wife of WWE Hall of Famer Booker T, had accumulated legitimate and serious grievances against Molina that she formally brought before Wrestler's Court seeking resolution and justice. The Undertaker has recalled this particular court session as one of the most emotionally charged and volatile proceedings he ever had the difficult task of presiding over. We had Wrestler's Court at the hotel. I want to say it was Molina, and maybe somebody else got brought on some kind of charges. Tears were openly shed by multiple parties. Tempers flared dramatically, and at one particularly tense point during the proceedings, the situation nearly escalated into an actual physical confrontation between the women involved. Sharmell was mad. She had good reason to be, the Undertaker has acknowledged, demonstrating that even while serving as the theoretically neutral and impartial judge, he recognized the validity and legitimacy of the complaints being formally brought forward against Molina. His timely physical intervention was reportedly all that prevented what could have easily become a full-blown backstage brawl between the two women. This dramatic story reveals Wrestler's Court functioning at its most serious and consequential level, not merely serving as a kangaroo court for addressing minor infractions and providing entertainment for the boys, but rather as a genuine and earnest attempt to resolve real conflicts that could have otherwise destroyed working relationships and derailed promising careers. The Undertaker's role in these proceedings wasn't just punitive or disciplinary, it was fundamentally mediatory, attempting to bring peace and resolution to volatile situations that threatened the harmony of the entire locker room. Tell us which revelation shocked you the most. Was it Hulk Hogan's fabrications and the booze at Netflix Raw, or the truth about the plane ride from hell? Something else entirely? Let us know your thoughts in the comments and click on the cards on screen for more.